Good morning, everybody. Patrick Queally, your friend of the mortgage business and co-host of the Wicked Awesome Report. We broadcast this every Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. or 10-ish, depending on our technical difficulty situation. I'm joined by my co-host, Declan O'Toole from Select Real Estate. Good morning, Declan.
Morning, Patrick.
So check us out on Facebook. Check out the Wicked Awesome Report Facebook page. Give us a comment, a like, a share, and you'll be notified when we go live next time around. And as you can probably see, we have a guest on today's show. So we have Ryan McDermott. Good morning, Ryan.
Morning.
So Ryan McDermott from Cross Coastal Advisors, doing some financial planning. You also have an insurance brokerage focusing on employee benefits and health insurance. Is that a fair introduction?
That's a fair introduction.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So like most of our calls here, not necessarily hard-hitting journalism here, just a little bit of conversation back and forth. And with everything that's happening in the current environment with the pandemic, everybody's business has been impacted in one way or another. So wanted to talk to you about some financial planning aspects and sort of what you're sensing and what you're seeing out there for your clients and how they're reacting differently as opposed to pre-pandemic. So first of all, tell us a little bit about your business and who are the clients that you serve.
Sure. Well, first, I'd just like to say thank you for having me on this. And if we're late, I'm gonna take the blame. It was twofold. It was I tried to invest in my audio, in AirPods to make that work, and then you'll be happy to know I haven't had a haircut in a long time, but I shaved my sideburns this morning.
I like
All
it.
right.
I like it.
Stylish.
I did it for that.
For this,
Yeah.
They're getting a little bit bushy, and I don't, with the AirPods you're working, we're gonna get frazzled. So.
Yeah, well, I was brave enough to let my girls cut my hair, a month or two ago.
I saw that.
Get the clippers out. Yeah, that was fun. Not.
I don't have that problem.
You don't have any. But yeah, no. So yeah, a little bit about our practice is, again, like you said, we are a financial planning company, and what we focus on really is planning, and that. Kind of might sound funny, but I think it's confusing for the average person when they think about finance. There's lots of different names for people that are in our field. You have financial planners, you have financial advisors, you have investment advisors, you have wealth managers, you have wealth advisors, and everybody has a different definition for them of what that means for what they do. Mm-hmm. And for us, when we say planning, we don't mean managing your assets. When we say planning, we don't mean selling you an insurance policy. When we say planning, we don't mean helping you finance a property. When we say planning, it's actual planning. It's taking a look at your entire financial picture to understand what's coming in, what's going out, and how to create efficiencies as best we can today, for the midterm, and for the long term.
Okay, and are you doing that for individuals, or is this, are you kind of an outsourced resource for specific companies?
So we do it for both. So we do it for individuals, and you can almost sort of, I know one of my partners almost dubs himself as somewhat of a personal CFO. Okay. And then we also do it for business owners. But I would hesitate to call ourselves outsourced CFOs for businesses. It's more kind of an extension of that personal CFO, and how do you leverage the business for your personal wealth and ultimate personal goals.
Okay, so rather than being outsourced, it's more like you're part of the team.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Yep. That makes sense.
And you specifically, what are your sort of areas of expertise in terms of from that perspective? Because it sounds like you take different elements of financial planning and working through that. Is it health insurance, or what's your?
Yeah. So within the team, there's probably about 12 of us, and within the team, I am actually, ironically, as talking about financial planning, I'm not actually the planner. The planners, within the firm, the ones that are actually kind of, leading the entire process. I can speak to it for sure. My kind of technical expertise lie definitely in, particularly on the business owner side, on kind of the insurance products when we get to that, and certainly how to create more efficiency in employee benefits and in particular health insurance. So.
Okay, cool. So obviously a lot of changes happening recently in the market. So what have you been doing differently, or what are the biggest changes you've seen come about in your practice as a result of the pandemic and all the sort of ripple effects that have touched just about every business?
Sure. Yeah. No, I'd say the biggest thing, whether you're a business or an individual or both, is kind of focusing back on the really foundational principles that we start with clients. When this all kind of unfolded and you see the stock market going haywire, up and down all over the place, if you plan properly and made sure that you had really simple things. Like I actually listened to one of your past recordings where you were talking about real estate investors and how for a real estate investment you should have an emergency fund for that the roof breaks or something major happens, a capital expenditure. You need to have reserves on the side. We believe the exact same thing whether you're a business, having reserves for your business, or reserves just in almost like it's an emergency fund as a personal. So I feel like a lot of our conversations initially, as everything kind of sprung, back in March, was to remind people that remind our clients that they've actually done strategic planning and they're prepared for this, mm-hmm. and to not necessarily freak out and panic, but we're now going to execute on what we thought might happen anyway.
Yeah. And have you seen that? Have you actually seen some companies or individuals go into panic mode and I don't want to say tear up the plan they made, but sort of question whether they are okay, or if they do need to really make a major adjustment in course? Have you seen people freaking out financially?
I would say within our client base, not real. I mean, it's definitely a panic. You can't not be alive today and not be concerned, because it's definitely not over. We don't know mm-hmm. how far this is going, but we haven't seen sort of people call us and say scrap everything. That's been pretty few and far between.
Good. No one's hitting the eject button.
Right. Yeah, they're really. I feel like we, again, I'm one person, but like we're meeting as a team constantly, and anecdotally, I don't feel like it hasn't been like that, but it definitely. We've been doing client webinars on different topics, and a lot of it, I'd say every other webinar we've been doing has been on mindset. And we even did one, I think it was mindset in a crisis, where we had kind of a PhD in psychology come in and talk about like how do you think through a problem when you're worried, and just saying it very lightly, definitely not doing it justice, but we recorded some of them actually. Yeah, and they're pretty interesting, and they've been helpful, I think, to clients, and frankly, honestly, as somebody who's self-employed, they've been helpful for me.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's your practice is certainly going deeper and wider than just the dollars and cents of it. It's right. Giving a wider sense of advice for your clients. Now, what is there any particular industry that most of your clients fall into, or do you specialize in one particular type of person or type of client or type of business?
Sure, it's a great question. So I would say, like if we're talking about businesses, our clients represent a cross-section of the local economy, which is pretty diverse. I've been sort of thinking a little bit more, the whole concept of like the 80-20 rule. How do you kind of, figure out like, do you want to work in certain niches and stuff like that? I've been, again, I haven't sort of picked one necessarily, but I've gone pretty deep the last, I'd say 6 months into, people own investment real estate, and businesses, business owners, smaller business owners, closely held businesses, and then people who do invest in real estate. And a lot of times that's all three. It'll be a business owner that maybe, bought the property that they operate out of.
Yep.
And that I find we sort of have a strategic advantage in the way that we sort of, the lens that we sort of look at planning through, and we can talk to them in a way that most financial advisors can't.
Because you have an understanding of real estate is part of it.
Absolutely. I mean, we most of us do invest in real estate ourselves, and one partner in particular invests significantly in real estate, and and it's a very hard thing. I think like I think about when I started as a financial advisor, financial planner, whatever I called myself back in 2005 or 2006. If I had met with somebody who owned a significant illiquid asset, out of business or a portfolio of real estate, I'd have had a very difficult time understanding and speaking to them about like what their day-to-day is like, what their risk is, and sort of how they view the world. How we're set up now, it's completely different. You can have a much more meaningful conversation and give more meaningful, sophisticated advice in that respect.
Sure. I mean, that just makes sense. When you're involved in that world yourself, you're not just looking at it from, professional advice, so to speak. You've also got some, personal experience with that you can help and relate and, relay that to your client, in terms of business advice.
Sure.
Yeah. Cool. And whereabouts are your clients? Are you, geographically located in one, concentrated in one area, or where are your clients?
I would say Eastern Massachusetts. I mean, we have got clients, as far as Worcester, all the way down through the Cape. Obviously, we're based in Needham. I live in Dedham. Many of us live kind of in that, sort of southwest of the city. It's just a lot of clients kind of, in greater Boston, I would say.
Okay.
But yeah, Eastern Mass.
Yeah. And I'd imagine at this stage of the game, you're pretty comfortable with the Zoom meetings. I guess that's the predominant method of interaction nowadays for you.
It is, yeah. I mean, I filled up my tank for the first time maybe about 2 weeks ago since March. So I have not been out and about. I run to the office. I've been working from home. This is my kind of little home office that I've sort of. It's actually really like a large walk-in closet that I kind of I took back and made it mine, and it's working for me. I moved a bunch of my screens home, and I definitely I would love to be inside, my favorite coffee shops and pizza places and restaurants that I like to go to, but.
Well, since you brought it up, I just got to point something out. There's a interesting contradiction over your shoulder. So I can't help but notice that Mets cup right beside the Patriots helmet. So give us a little background on that, if you would.
Ryan's going to make some enemies on this call.
So this actually came up on a call on Monday, yesterday. Yesterday this came up, and what I would say is this Mets mug. This is a 1986 World Champion mug. No offense, Boston people, I love you. My entire family and household are Red Sox fans, and I cheered with you in 2004.
But they're kind enough to give you one cup on one shelf.
That's right. I got the one cup on the one shelf, and then I do have one other. I gotta find it. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Sorry, this is going to really insult a lot of you. This is, I was at a nonprofit fundraiser at the Boston College Club. This is probably about 10 years ago. You guys might have actually even been at this. They had a silent auction, and there were no bidders on this. And I'm the only person in the crowd that bid on this. This is I'm going to try to autographed by Billy Buckner and Mookie.
Oh,
Buckner.
He autographed it. Oh my God.
I'm sorry. But to give you a sense of my household, like, again, I'm in an office in a closet in a little corner, and this is the only place this can exist.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many closets are going to be claimed as offices when we start selling real estate again.
Yeah.
So
That's right. Well, I'm in a B&I chapter, and I think, Pat, you guys have had some experience with B&I, and we have a personal organizer who actually, like, when I had sort of gotten this, I cleaned it up so that I could get inside and operate in it, and I actually had her. We actually did we did a video. Where she did, I'm going to get the video, I'll have to post it at some point, where she basically like gave me over the phone advice on how to make my office better. I mean, she didn't consult on the sports memorabilia, but she did help me organize it substantially. And I was like, hey, this should be, this could be a big market. I think as people, again, I think this, when this ends, or what version of ending this actually like, and we all kind of get back to day-to-day life. I don't think people are going to forget how easy it was to do things like what we're doing right now. Yeah. And there'll be more focus, I think, on less commuting and, focusing on lifestyle in that way. Yeah.
Well, one thing that I shared with my kids, and Ryan, I'm sure your kids will be happy to hear this, Declan, yours as well. What came about, I think it's in Rhode Island. The school system put out some, advice or information going forward that in the winter, if there's a snow day, it's not really going to be a day off from school anymore. There's going to be homeschooling with the Zoom meetings and all that. So, you end up, sitting in front of the TV. I remember sitting in front of the TV watching the town names scroll through to see if school would be canceled, or listening to WBZ and the list of towns, and celebrating when you see your town on the screen or hear your town's name on the radio, and run outside and start building your snowman and snowball fights. Not gonna happen so much in the future, I don't think.
Be more summer days though, right? Just less.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
More time cancels.
It's a trade-off. So if there's less days canceled, they'll be finished earlier.
That's right. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. So with all the changes that we've seen recently, how has, I guess, maybe the mindset of your clients changed yet? Have they? Do you think they've become more conservative and they want to have more of a solid plan, or more reserves, more saved up? Are they trying to, shore up their financial resources for, something else, whatever, the next stage or the next financial issue is? Do you think this is a wake-up call for a lot of people?
I think it is. Yeah. I mean, I think if you're somebody who was a good saver, but perhaps didn't have like the big 3 to 6 month emergency fund, and it looked more like a month and a half or 2 months, and you're still employed today, perhaps you're taking some of those dollars and putting those aside into that emergency fund. I think that's definitely something. Just probably a conservative tactic that makes a lot of sense.
Expect the unexpected. That's right. Essentially what happened here.
Yeah. But then, I think on the flip side, the idea of, our kind of general thesis has been kind of based on, like, there was this report, I think, done in 2011, that U.S. News and World Report had put out, and they looked at, the amount of money that, like, the average American, and this isn't the high net worth American, this is like literally the average American, the excess fees that they pay to financial institutions, and also in taxes over their lifetimes. and the opportunity cost of those decisions it is like the price tag in that, depending on where you live in the country, could be anywhere from like $2 to $6 million. And, and like that's a staggering number, but like, again, factoring in, if you know anything about interest rates, and I know at least one of you does, both of you do, about like strapping, that kind of compound interest onto inefficiency is just immense. At the very basis of what you do, Pat. I mean, getting somebody from 5% interest rate down to, I guess we're probably around 3 or even below it at 30-year fix.
Yeah.
I mean, what those dollars are, what the calculation is on those dollars, and then when you try to calculate what the opportunity cost of those dollars is, it's significant. And that's
exactly. And what I tell the clients is, okay, great, we can, put together a refi for you. We can save you whatever it is, $200, $300, $500 a month, and that's great. But what's important is, what are you going to do with that $300 or $500? So it's not just saving it so you can go and blow it and spend it everywhere. Let's put together a better financial plan so you can use that to help you get further down in terms of financial success and financial independence.
That's for somebody.
Yeah, and I mean, and so like that's like when we come in initially to do a plan for somebody, it's like we're not coming in and talking about, okay, you need to change your investments, or you need to have this type of account, or you need to own this insurance policy, or whatever it is. It's like doing a deep dive on figuring out where those inefficiencies are. Our goal is to get as much of that $2 to $6 million back into our clients' pockets.
That's a staggering number.
It is. It's crazy. I'll have to find that. I know I haven't looked at that in a while, and I wonder if they've updated it. But it's but like we see it. I mean, it's a crazy number. And
and it can be just as simple as putting together a budget and just taking a look at it's a couple of bucks here, a couple of bucks there. You don't really see it or feel it that much, but when it all adds up, I mean, damn, going to a couple of million, that's
yeah, I mean that's the vacation house that you didn't think you could afford,
and several vacations. Yeah,
right. But
wow.
But then like in the other big thing, right, I think right now, like that like I'm talking about like small business owners, like down to the self-employed person. Think of single-digit numbers of employees, companies. They typically don't have a CFO that like CFOs of larger companies that we deal with that have hundreds of employees. Yep. Are very sophisticated purchasers of employee benefits. And if you don't have somebody like, again, a 10-person company is not going to have a Harvard MBA CFO that is going to be able to challenge is going to be able to decipher which one of the 107 health insurance options that you should be picking. And so one of the things I've been sort of experimenting with and testing is again, I've been doing this with like I started with sort of sole proprietors, is to challenge sole proprietors to think about the amount of money that they're spending on health insurance differently than they do now. Again, I've been in sort of the health insurance world for the better part of 15 years, and where I've kind of gotten is I think we have turned health insurance, we've taken the insurance out of health insurance in a lot of ways. If you think about the plans that we're on, they have co-pays for going to the doctor, you have co-pays for going to a specialist, co-pays to get your RX and your drugs. Think about your auto insurance. Would you ever use your auto insurance to go get your annual checkup? Would you ever use your auto insurance to get, oil, that it needs? You wouldn't. And if so what I've been trying to do is explain to people that like a lot of times the plans that they're they're using it as in my opinion, and in most cases, an excessively expensive health insurance financing program to access healthcare. rather than reducing risk for major health events. And so what we do is, with the self-employed people is, you have over 100 choices in health insurance every single year. How do you pick one? And what I would challenge is that understand what your actual health expenditures are. I mean, you can't predict certain things that'll happen, but you do have some sense of, what your prescriptions are. You do have some sense of how many times your family goes to the doctor. And if you don't, you can actually ask your health insurance company and they'll send it to you. They send you, those explanation of benefits forms that says it looks like a bill, but it's not actually a bill. Yeah. That is your spending. And I know, what my number is. So I feel very confident in having a very high deductible, and then taking those dollars and setting them aside in things like health savings accounts that is the only type of account that you can never be taxed on. You get a tax write-off on the way in. It can grow, if it's invested, tax deferred, and then on the way out, if you're using it for healthcare, it's not taxed either. And it's again, that's just like one tactical example of efficiency. And it's like when you do the numbers in some of these plans, you're talking about putting, for sole proprietor, I saw one where they could reduce their premium by about $10,000, and based on in a year, but based on their health utilization, it's probably more like $5,000. Yeah. And do the math on what could you do with that $5,000? I mean, forget about investing.
So Ryan, do you when you go in, so you meet with somebody? First off, it sounds to me like, is it 1 to 10 is sort of a size, the company size that works for you?
That's kind of what that's what I'm focused on right now. And we have clients, and I have a strategic partner that manages a book of business for me that handles clients that are much, that are above 10 employees that are much bigger. But what I'm like, again, this came from sort of like, coming in as like a financial planner to try to help out, try to gain efficiencies back in some of these small business owners' lives. You look at they're not getting a ton of great advice or strategic advice on health insurance. And,
so would you sit down?
1 to 10, yeah.
Will you sit down? So you sit down with a sole proprietor, get that's a one-to-one conversation. Do you sit down at any point with employees too on occasion, or how would you go about setting somebody up if you're,
So it's probably less with employees and, with health insurance and more with the employer or whoever has to make the decision at the company to think about, like if you're making a decision for more than just you and you have employees, I think the big concern, we have a lot of very generous employers in Boston and in Massachusetts that might see the light of having a higher deductible plan and sort of being a little more strategic about it. But, they're the owner of the company and they, maybe they do really well and maybe they have employees that, have more entry-level type salaries and they're worried about that risk. You can offer a couple of different options for employees and you can give people the choice. And then what we like to do is we can go in and sort of explain it to them in layman's terms so that they can sort of make the choice for themselves. And and when you get into where you actually have employees, you could have as little as like 4 or 5 employees, and there are actually health insurance companies that like you wouldn't even know of that will reward you if you've had a healthy year. Like if you've got a 10-person company and you could be paying, if you've got a lot of families on the plan, you could be paying close to $100,000, for your health insurance. And then in Massachusetts, you don't really get to see what the claims are, to know, did we actually have $100,000 in expenditures? I know my family spends, maybe around $5,000 on a bad year, and probably like $2,000 or $3,000. So how does that all add up? There are carriers out there that will, if you paid $100,000 in and you only had, 60 or 70,000 in claims, in the same way that like workers' comp companies that will pay you back for having not had a lot of claims. The same thing exists in health insurance. Nobody knows about it.
Yeah, I'd never heard of that before. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. All right.
Worth the conversation after this call.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So Ryan, sort of looking forward into the future, what, if you were to give a small business owner a piece of advice today in the current, again, the sort of pandemic environment, they're maybe looking at their plans to go forward. Hopefully, the company is going to survive and make it through all this. What's, one piece of advice that you could give a company owner to proactively take a look at or do right now when it comes to, their insurance plans?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's get strategic and start to educate yourself. Like almost a good exercise would be, I think that to start, this is really simple, is you as the business owner, if you're insured on that plan, or even if you're not insured on that plan, get your explanation of benefits for the last 12 months and see how much healthcare you utilized. And then take that number and compare it to what the premium would be for you or your family. And just as an exercise to see what that number looks like. And, that might be something that is, that might kind of spark you to want to, dive and look at it a little bit more deeper.
Okay. All right. And Ryan, for the people that are watching, and I'll drop a comment under the video as well. I know that you're tagged in the video, but what somebody that does want to reach out to you that needs some help or advice from your firm, what would be the best way that someone could reach out to you?
So they could find us at it's crosscoastaladvisors.com is the name of the planning firm.
Okay.
The address for the planning firm. That I have another website that's kind of more specific to the benefits, and that's masscoverage.com. Okay. So that's crosscoastaladvisors.com and masscoverage.com. Yep. Okay, great. So 2 spots for people to go to check out what Ryan can do to help with your insurance as a small business owner, and talking about some big numbers here that can make an impact to the bottom line, for sure. So I think we've been going close to 40 minutes at this point. So I think we're gonna wrap it up. Any closing thoughts, Declan?
No, I've known Ryan for years. I do have my health insurance, and I've got my insurance with Ryan and with Cross Coastal Advisors. So I highly recommend what he does, and they've definitely saved me money over time and set me up for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ryan, I've known you for a long time, and despite the Buckner picture, you're a stand-up guy.
Well, I'm hopeful that the Gronk autographed helmet will cancel it out.
Exactly. A little balancing act there.
He is hiding the Buckner picture. So
yeah. And what about my Ireland flag? My Ireland flag.
You get props for that one. All right, Ryan. Well, I definitely want to thank you for hopping on and joining us for a little bit of conversation this morning. Thanks to Declan, our co-host here from Select Real Estate. I'm Patrick Queally, your friend in the mortgage business. This has been another edition of the Wicked Awesome Report. Check us out on Facebook. We have a Facebook page, Wicked Awesome Report. Give us a comment, a like, a share. You'll be notified when the next video is posted, and we host these lives every Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. or 10-ish, depending on our technical difficulties. But we'll wrap it up and call it a day for now. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and until the next edition, hope everybody stays awesome. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
All right, let's end the live stream here.